welcome to Comically Pedantic, where we take a detailed look at the complicated concepts, characters, and history of comic book culture. I'm your host, Eric L. Chase, and joining me on this episode, as always, is the wonderful Corinne Levy.
It's me, Corinne, the person who doesn't know how to do the intro. This opportunity was offered to me, and I very quickly declined.
I don't think it's too hard. It's just one of those things where, like, you got to get into a rhythm of speaking. And
I can do a spiel on like how a wine tasting works at my job, like in 5 to 10 seconds. My brain explodes every time you start doing an episode. I'm just like, I can't do it. My mouth doesn't work.
I didn't today, but this is in full disclosure, I'm recovering from being sick. We were actually going to record much earlier than we did, and that had to be postponed due to a very high fever on my part.
And I was the one who forced us to postpone.
I'm a workaholic.
Derek was like, I hacked up a lung, and I said, okay, that means we're not doing it.
Well, I normally, when I go in to record, I make myself a bunch of iced coffee and I down it right before we record.
This is true.
So that I can actually like have the energy going through it. I mean, also usually I'm up from like 4 a.m. And then we record in like later in the afternoon. So like I need a little bit of pick me up before we get going.
You need a straight shot of caffeine to the veins. I just have a mug of bubbly water in it, and I'm just gonna sip that throughout.
Ooh, is it flavored bubbly water?
It is flavored bubble water. Because I don't like to call it sparkling water. I just like the word bubble more. It's raspberry lemonade flavored.
Oh, that sounds good. We have
nice.
Lime and like black cherry, I think.
Ooh,
here.
That's fun. Do you get the ShopRite brand one?
Yes.
That's what I get.
Maybe
Bowl and Basket.
I think she goes back and forth, which I think that Polar and Bubbly. And
Bubbly's fun.
The black cherry one is one that I was like, oh, that sounds like it would be too sweet, too strong for me to really enjoy. No, it's really good.
It's good. It's a good time. I like the Bowl and Basket. This is just going to be a whole podcast on us talking about flavored sparkle water. We're going to keep procrastinating my episode to just talk about random foods and drinks that I like. No, but I really like the Bowl and Basket bubbly orange water.
Oh, that sounds really good too.
It's mandarin orange because they just had to add. For some reason, it's like my old boss used to say, like, yeah, one word flavors are classics, but 2-word flavors, those are the sexy flavors. And you know what? I think it's the only correct thing he ever said.
Okay, I guess so. Before we get too deep into talking about our favorite waters or Spider-Man, I should ask what your bright spot is.
This water. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't know. I've been spending a lot of time with my cat. I feel like progressively as we do this episode, it's more and more cat in depth in my life. No, I just got Five Guys, and I haven't had Five Guys in like years. Wow. So I've torn down a burger about 2 hours ago, and it was delightful. Oh, and I've also been playing Undertale. I've been playing a lot of Undertale recently.
That sounds familiar. I don't know if
I
know that
if you were like a kid who liked Hot Topic and like Arctic Monkeys, you probably in like 2013 played Undertale.
Oh, now that I Google it, I know exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really cute.
Yeah.
It's a good time. And it's like, it's kind of different from most video games that I play because it's like, there's actually like a story and I have to like be somewhat coordinated. And I don't really know like what's ahead because it's not like a Lego like Indiana Jones game where I've seen all the movies so I know exactly what the plot points are supposed to be. Like, you know, it's fun to not know where I'm going. In terms of the Clone Saga Spider-Man, I don't really know how I feel about him yet.
Well, I think I've told you at the more I read, the more I'm actually enjoying it.
I'm being harsh on it. I did have a fine time reading this. So this section, it's like the Exile returns.
Right.
Yes. So that's what I read. And I think, well, I'll get to how I feel about it overall as a story, but it does like focus very much on like Ben Reilly. Spider-Man, like our good old Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker is definitely just Peter Parker. You like barely see him. Actually, you technically don't. So yeah.
This is starting to sound like a bad comic book plot.
Do you want to like recap really quick what like we did last week? Just like
yeah, so
tiny, I mean, like 2-sentence, like what mostly happened.
Essentially, Ben shows up. Peter and he get into an argument / fight over several issues while dealing with Judas Traveler, who has crazy powers that really don't amount to anything. And then at the end, Ben is like seemingly killed, but really isn't, and just wanders off into what would actually be Westchester, New York, not even New York City. Just wanders off. And that's
so
it.
we're gonna pick up here right now. This is the first issue I read. It was Web of Spider-Man, issue 118. He's not in Westchester. Ben Reilly's not in Westchester. He's he's in New York. He's at the Museum of Natural History. That's where it starts. Yeah, that's where it all starts. And he's basically just internally monologuing. And
as most Spider-Men do.
Yes. And he's really mad that he's a clone. He's like, God damn it. I'm not a person, but I have all these memories. I don't know if they really mentioned it in the parts that you read, but like shared memories, very much a big part of Ben Reilly. And he kind of is constantly debating, like, are these my own? Or like, are they just Peter Parker's and I should just accept them as like they're his, not mine? And like, who am I? So he's having an existential crisis inside the Natural History Museum. And eventually, like, he gets asked to leave because it's almost closing time by a maintenance man. As he's like leaving, he's walking the streets. He's gonna see like a robbery is happening. And because his spidey senses go off, because he also has spidey senses. And he's like, oh no, this robbery. What am I gonna do? Like, do I like take over this? Because I'm not this world's like Spider-Man. Or is like, should I let somebody else do it? Should I do it? Like, what am I supposed to act? And basically before anything happens, like the police take care of it and everything's fine. So he's just like, oh, cool. I didn't have to be responsible for this thing because like, I'm not a person in this world really. Which is kind of weird and kind of heavy.
That is an interesting thing. I do know that as the series goes on, there's a lot of like talk over being a real person. Yes. And I think, you know, like if you're a clone, you're still a person. Like
yeah. And like and he just is like he has no clue what the hell he's doing. And he's still like and he's very aware that he has like all these spidey powers as we saw like with the asylum like battles and stuff like that. Okay. So that's like basically all of scene 1. And then we're going to go to a different side of the city. You have Venom. They kind of allude that he hasn't been in the city for a while, but now he's like back. And he's really mad because he knows about Judas Traveler being at the asylum. Carnage was also there. And Venom takes a lot of like personal responsibility over Carnage because he's like, I created this symbiote. Like, and he's freaking crazy. Like, I feel like I need to redeem myself. So now Venom has decided he's just going to try and chaotically turn himself into a hero, even though literally everybody in New York is like, this thing is a psycho. So Venom sees that there's a robbery happening on his side of the city and just decides to stop this high-speed chase that it's in with the police and rams the robber's car off a bridge and like into water. So we just see 2 very like different robberies and how they're handled. one gets murdered, the other gets like peacefully arrested. It's very weird.
It's weird also that like I know New York has a lot of crime.
Yes.
But it seems like there's like a lot of crime in this. Like
it's a lot of simultaneous crime.
Right.
The parts that I've read have a lot of like meanwhile and like back to this and like everything's happening at the same time. So it's very odd. Okay, so robbery, murder happens, done. We're gonna go to Aunt May now. She's in a coma. As we've learned.
Check in. I mean, you never know. Maybe
we gotta check in. Everybody has to have a hospital scene. That's how this works. And so her friend Mrs. Watson is there. That is MJ's mom. I'm gonna let the audience know that Corinne. I did not know that because
that's actually her aunt.
It's her aunt.
Yeah.
Okay, great. But either way, it's not Mary Jane herself.
Right.
When I first read this, I thought it was Mary Jane. And because I didn't know what was happening with Peter Parker when I started this, I didn't know what Derek read. So I, for a while, thought one is Ben Reilly from a different universe and therefore sees himself as a clone and somehow got like multiversed his way here. And two, is this a universe where Peter Parker is like 60? That's not the case. It's just Mary Jane's aunt coming to visit her friend May, who's in a coma. And then for some reason, Betty Brant just like arrives and is
I guess Betty would have known May through Peter.
Yes. I had to look up who Betty was because I was just like, who is she? She works at the paper. Yeah, she works at the Daily Bugle. Good stuff.
She's also in the newer Spider-Man movies. She dates Ned in one of them.
Oh, good for Ned.
That's supposed to be the same character.
Yeah,
it's just her as like a high schooler. But
yeah,
I think in the comics she was a little bit older than Peter.
She sometimes apparently like is also in school with him. Sometimes she's his love interest, sometimes not.
Yeah, they dated briefly in the earlier Spider-Man stories.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. So she's like, she talks to Mrs. Watson and like, sends like regards and all that stuff. While this conversation is happening, Ben Reilly is just like chilling outside of the hospital on the wall, like listening in because he wants to check on Aunt May and sees Betty and is just like, she's cute. And then I'm just like, is this going to be a love interest thing? Who knows? Spoiler alert. She doesn't come back for like any part that I've read. She's just like an arbitrary cameo. She does not come back.
I do know that she continues in the series. So I'm wondering if that's a setup for like way later.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll get to that though.
Yeah.
And then kind of after that, we have these like, it gives you just a lot of like memory rejogging. Mm-hmm. So like there's a point where Venom is like at a church and he remembers like when Eddie Brock got turned into Venom. And then you have Ben Reilly remembering how Peter Parker chose to become Spider-Man. And it's all the same kind of like origin story that like pretty much everyone knows, like the baseline about Venom and the baseline about Spider-Man. It kind of just rehashes all that for the rest of the issue.
That might be a product of the time, because there was a period where as comics were coming out, you never knew if you were going to get the issue right before or if you could find back issues. So they did a lot of like, well, as you know, and then they would just fill you in on everything you needed to know.
Yep. Except they didn't do it right. And I'm going to explain as we go further, because there were some things that I was just like, I had to double check so many times because I was like, did I somehow miss this? Or did I like not fully listen to what Derek was like summarizing? And no, that's not the case. It just was never freaking mentioned.
And this is what like later in the 90s, Marvel did a thing. I wish they still did. They have since dropped this and I don't know why. At the beginning of each issue, there would be 1 or 2 pages that would give you the characters that are involved and what their basic backstory was. And I loved that. And
That's
they
cool.
stopped it. They did it for like a couple of years, and then they were like, we don't have to do that anymore. I don't understand why.
I don't know. Maybe they were just like, everybody knows these guys now because we're Marvel and we're so cool. But it's also just like, no, and your website doesn't work well. We'll get into that later. But yeah, so that's pretty much the end of Web of Spider-Man 118. Really, it's just power and responsibility. That was the main theme, because Ben Reilly's just reminding himself why Spider-Man is Spider-Man. And that's, like, fine. It was okay.
I mean, they're the ground of power and responsibility is well tread within Spider-Man comics. So I guess if you're starting off, it's something.
Yeah, it's like, okay. I think I was a bit underwhelmed by that because I knew I was starting kind of on like essentially like chapter 2 essentially of this whole like thing. So I was just kind of like, maybe they would have laid this down in chapter 1, but I guess not. Because I didn't know what was going on in the first chapter. So what I didn't like, we'll start with that, and then I'm going to end with the positive. I didn't like that there was like too much reminiscing on like the two main people's backstory, because again, I just felt like everybody knows that. It's a product of the time, so like I'm not too mad about it. It's whatever. And then it just also it had nothing else to say except for just like power, responsibility, Uncle Ben's dead. That was it. What I did like, I liked Ben Reilly's costume, because he does put it on at the end. Because he's like, maybe I'll end up using this. And it's the cool, like, sleeveless, like, hoodie thing, but he's got sleeves and he's got the cool mask. It's very fun. It's very, like, Rocky, Rambo, but Spider-Man. And I thought that was fun. So big fan of that. Also, I liked the museum. I liked that they started in a museum of natural history, because this is a man who has no history. And it's maybe something he yearns for.
I like that. Yeah.
Did I come up with that on my own? I hope not. I hope that they thought that through. He just uses it as like a little hideout in this issue, and I thought that was cool and fun and groovy.
I like that a lot. I don't think I would have put that together.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. And then that's Elfine of that one. We're gonna move on to not Web of Spider-Man, but we're gonna move on to Spider-Man Unlimited. This is issue number 7. I was reading this, and I think Derek knows I got very mad reading this. So
I'm a defender of the Unlimited series, but it really depends on the issue, on whether or not it makes sense or is worthwhile.
So I want everyone to know, I did not know the context of Spider-Man Unlimited. I did not know. So when I first read this, and I'm reading all of this on Marvel Unlimited, I am thankfully Derek is sharing his account with me. I really appreciate that. And what it'll do is you'll see like when you have it on like full screen, it'll say like the title if you like kind of move your screen like you do on Netflix. And then it shows you a progression bar of how much of it you've read. So I'm going to read you what I thought was the whole end of this. So the issue starts with Ben Reilly's at a diner. Classic New York. Just kidding, that's New Jersey, and they ripped it off. And his spidey senses go off because across the street there's another robbery.
Yeah, and so this fucking New York is insane.
Literally all of these things for the first half of what I was reading was just robberies. It's just robberies. So this time he actually does like a quick little hero moment. He just puts the mask on and he stops these robbers. And they're like, "Oh, what are you, like a second-rate not Batman, Spider-Man?" They're like, "Oh, New York, who are you?" Because he just has a mask on, and they're trying to just like demean him, and he's like, "That's actually pretty accurate. I am a second-rate Spider-Man."
Oh, don't be so harsh on yourself, Ben.
You know what? Ben Reilly, the king of self-deprecation. I'm gonna let you know right now.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So, he stops these robbers. And while this is happening, because again, ton of mean times, we have this homeless man. His name is Richard. He's very wholesome. He just wants to work. He wants a job. He's down on his luck. He finds $5 on the street and he's really excited because he just wants to buy like a sandwich. But he's rudely turned away by like some shitty store clerk. And that's sad.
I want him to come back and Pretty Woman that place.
Me too. I was really rooting for Richard. This part of the issue I really liked because it's more than just the power and responsibility. It's all kind of like, nobody is really second rate. You're just perceiving them as that because you want to put them down. So like Richard is the other side of like being treated like a second rate person, except this one's more accurate to like society, unfortunately. Anyway, so now this is actually the only time you really see Peter Parker ever is in this issue. Once Richard has just been like, harassed by store clerks and asked to leave, we go back to Aunt May. Everybody loves Aunt May. And the Peter Parker is there and he's like, hey, Aunt May, I'm sad. I miss you. Ben Reilly is doing his little Spidey stance on the wall outside, listening in. And as soon as Peter Parker leaves, Ben hops in and is like, hey, Aunt May, I'm sad. I miss you, even though we don't technically know each other, I guess. So he's like sharing his sentiments and they almost have a little bit like, oh no, they bump into each other because like Peter like forgot his like keys or something. But that doesn't happen. They don't.
I guess I get the idea of Ben trying to keep his like being aliveness a secret. Because he does want Peter to kind of like live Peter's life. But at the same time, if you're stopping robberies dressed as a Spider-Man, he might put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, that never really comes up. I'm gonna let you know. This is very Ben focused, and Ben doesn't seem to care too much about it, like, because he just doesn't think of himself as Spider-Man.
He sees himself as like a shadow of Peter.
And he does, and
therefore,
I think he's
like
really,
Peter is Spider-Man. He's just the shadow.
Yeah, and he's really confused because he like talks about this frequently, how he's just like have all these memories of you and it like these memories are feelings and they're all focused usually towards like Aunt May. Like I'm really like feeling for you and I miss you even though like I don't like my body doesn't know you but my brain does. So he's kind of battling that. And he does frequent, like, the hospital a lot. And he just kind of hides away from people because he doesn't want to have a run-in with, like, people part of actual Peter's life. It's very, like, complicated for him.
He's more of a cockroach than a spider.
Yes!
The light comes on and he scatters.
Truly. I would call him a lanternfly, but I don't think he's that invasive. I had like a horrible experience with a lanternfly the other day. Like an hour ago. I will tell you about it later though. So, it was on me while I was in the bathroom and it was terrifying. No. To have a terrifying alien bug on. I love that I was like, I'll tell you later. No, I'm telling you now.
No, they seem like aliens. I don't.
They
like
are horrible.
They're crazy.
It's like if Mothman had Spawn and had a vendetta against the world. They're terrifying. I don't like them. I was in the bathroom in a vulnerable moment and I turned to look at my shoulder and it was just there. And I went, ah! And Max was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I've been attacked. It was terrible. Anyway.
For those who aren't on the East Coast like we are, these are I don't know where they came from, but there's some sort of an invasive species. Like there's literally ordinances out that are like, if you see them, kill them.
Yes.
Like it's that kind of a thing.
Yeah, because there's a lot of animals that don't know to kill them yet. And I know like if cats or dogs eat them, they do get sick. It's a time.
Oof.
Like, they'll just throw them up. They're not gonna, like, die.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that part. I
just don't
know
let
if I go to the trail near us, there's like signs about them.
Just
it's
kill
like
them.
bear and lantern flies. That's it.
Yeah. I'm more scared of lantern flies than I am of a bear.
Yeah, bears tend to just walk away.
Bears
at least around
great.
here,
Love a bear. Love bears. All the bears. Big fan. So the hospital. He makes it out of he makes it out of the hospital he doesn't get caught. He's hopping on the top of the hospital, being sad because he's like, I'm invisible. No one wants to know me. And down below in the streets, we see homeless man Richard, who also feels invisible because people ignore the homeless, and that's unfortunate. I honestly, weirdly, I feel more bad for Richard, who's definitely not our main character.
Well, I don't think that's weird because, Ben's is self-imposed.
Yes.
I'm invisible. That's because you hide from people, Ben.
Yeah, that's because you're hanging on the outside walls. Like, that's on you, dude. No, I really felt for Richard. As Richard is walking along, there is a street gang that just starts harassing him.
There's so much crime.
He's not invisible anymore. He's just a victim now. It's really sad. And, like, they're trying to get his backpack from him, and he's just like, please leave me alone. I'm just Richard.
Oh my God, this is so depressing.
It's so sad, but it's drawn in like that, like 80s, like colorful, like goofy coloring book kind of thing. It's very weird.
This is the early days of Photoshop, so there's going to be some heavy, weird pop art colors.
Yes, there were definitely quite some colorful moments. And I guess this is later enough time where Ben Reilly is now just walking on the street being sad for himself and walks past this whole, like, scene. And, like, Richard sees that this man is just past him and is like, literally no human wants to help me. This is garbage. But Ben Reilly's thinking, like, oh, I really should have helped that guy. So he runs to his apartment and, like, gets in his full, like, I call him Spider-Ben at this point.
Spider-Ben.
Yeah, he gets on his Spider-Ben costume and then he runs back. The timing in which this spans out, I do not know. He must have lived next door. Because I'm sorry, if you live in New York, I'm assuming you gotta take, like, 12 trains to get to your apartment and then 13 trains back to get to where this Richard is being harassed. But yeah, Spider-Man kicks their butt. Spider-Ben kicks their butt. And they again are being like, oh, who are you? Some kind of, like, second-rate Spider-Man? And he's like, yeah, I am. And by the end of the issue, Ben accepts that, like, he is a form of Spider-Man and will help people even though he is not the Spider-Man of this New York City. Good stuff. And I was like, you know what?
Progress there.
I was like, that's good. Like, Ben's good. He's, like, accepted that, I am some form of I can help. That's awesome. We love that. Also, Richard ends up being okay in the end. Some citizen bystander is like, hey, you seem like a good man. I would like to give you a job.
Oh, that's good.
So
that's how you know this is fictional.
Absolutely.
Someone stopped to actually help the homeless in a way that actually could help.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I want you all to remember that I mentioned that there was a progression bar on the comics up at the top. So I wasn't done. But it said the end in the little corner in Comic Sans. And I was like, why aren't I done? Why isn't it queuing my next issue? And I was like, you know what? Maybe it's already on the queue. So I'll continue. We go to Aztec Corpse, just a big building where we meet James Kapostas. I don't know how to say his last name. It's very bizarre. we meet a CEO head of like this vehicle company. This is when I feel like I'm having technical issues. The CEO of this vehicle company is kind of your classic depiction of like some big business CEO guy. He doesn't really like care about the people that are buying his products because there was just multiple accidents caused by his vehicles, and there were like seatbelt errors or something. So a lot of people like died because their seatbelts didn't work. And he's pretty much just like settling the lawsuit, keeping it like on the down low because he's like, yeah, you gotta get your hands dirty to be successful. I'm a New York CEO. And so as he's about to like go into his office, this crazy looking thing comes through his window and tries to kill him. It's Cardiac.
Oh, Cardiac.
For those of you who don't know, Cardiac looks like the villain from Scooby-Doo Cyber Chase. That movie. Just
I'm
the
gonna
weird.
actually look that up.
It's a weird blue, lanky thing with crazy eyes. Just crazy, like coked out eyes. And that is the Scooby-Doo cyberspace virus.
I can kind of see that.
They look the same to me. So I was like, I didn't know I was reading a crossover issue. Also, what does this have to do with the Clone Saga? I'm going to let you all know now, it does not. I'm going to put you through what I went through. So, Cardiac's like, I'm going to kill you for all of the crimes you've committed indirectly to human beings. And then Spider-Man comes in after Cardiac has assaulted multiple security guards at this point. And then Spider-Man, and when I say Spider-Man, I mean like proper Spider-Man, like Peter Parker Spider-Man. And Cardiac are duking it out. The CEO escapes the office. As he gets out of the office, he has a heart attack because he was very scared. So natural caused heart attack.
Not cardiac.
Not a cardiac caused heart attack.
Yeah.
And when I say cardiac, I mean the cardiac villain, not cardiac arrest, though he is probably going through that right now for natural reasons. So Cardiac, the villain, gets away. And Spider-Man is like, hey, call this man an ambulance, take him to a hospital. Now we're going to find out, because this whole time I'm like, who is Cardiac? Are we going to understand who this is? I don't know. Yes, you are. He is actually a surgeon. That's like who his like alter ego is, his secret identity. And he decided he wanted to be Cardiac after he used to be like this really like kind of grubby doctor who would be like, I only like will do surgery on you if you can afford it. And then his brother died because nobody helped his sick brother because his sick brother couldn't afford it. So now he's gone the like total Jurassic end, and he's like, I'm just gonna kill anybody who hurts people because they don't care about the little guy. Does that make sense?
Okay, so he's essentially Doctor Strange.
He used to be, he was like Doctor Strange, but if Doctor Strange's brother died, and so he's gonna take it out on the world. It's like if Doctor Strange was a villain arc.
And he has a somewhat similar thing to Peter, where it's like, I care only about myself, and then a bad thing happens to someone that I love, and now I have to reevaluate all that I see. Maybe not as well put together as Peter's.
Yes. And also, he flies on a weird hang glider and has a big shocky stick.
90s.
Yes.
Oh, a big shocky stick.
Big shocky stick.
Every villain worth their weight has a big shocky stick.
Listen, I'm a fan of the big shocky stick. I just think he needs to work on the costuming because, again, he has no nose. It's jarring.
There is a weird thing in the 90s where a lot of these characters were popping up that had no discernible nose. There's a guy for the X-Men.
He has like he has no face features except for like these eyes. Mm-hmm. Just these big eyes without lids. Because they didn't draw it on his mask or whatever it's supposed to be. And then he has no lips either. So it's just like eyes and a slit for a mouth. And he's like, ah! It's crazy.
The Maverick character from X-Men also he wore this like mask. The mask that he wore had no nose on it. So like it's very clearly a mask, something over his face.
Yeah.
But it makes his face look so flat.
Yes.
Because there's no
this
nose
man
to it.
looked very flat, and he was also bright blue. So again, cyberspace. So this CEO is now in the hospital. Someone needs to like,
this Geico CEO guy.
Yes, this Aztec CEO guy is in the hospital, needs to be treated. Guess whose hospital it is? It's Cardiac's hospital, but he's in doctor mode now. I know, right? Gasp. So he's kind of going through like a moral dilemma. And then pretty much what happens is he helps the CEO. He like treats him. And then he's like, oh, you know what? Once he gets out of the hospital, though, I can kill him. And it's going to be great. So he still's like planning to kill him. And then he gets up.
It's kind of like Batman's thing in Batman Begins, where he's like, you know, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. He's like, I'm going to save you, but then I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. And he does kind of like a half-assed job at like saving him.
Okay.
So, which we find out later, but so he has now as Cardiac, because he's about to go try and make a second attempt at killing the CEO. Spider-Man intervenes and is like, leave him be! I thought you would do this, you crazy man. And they have a whole debate on like if he's responsible or not, and like, you know, big business, immoral stuff like that. And then the CEO dies. He just doesn't stay stable for long enough. So just like, and then Spider-Man's like, that really sucks. I guess it was God's will. And like, and then Cardiac was like, should I have tried harder to save him? Or like, this is what I wanted all along. And like starts to question himself. And then that's the end of that. And then I looked at the progression bar and I wasn't done. And I was like, why am I not done?
What's going through your mind at this point? Because now you're 2 stories in.
I was tired, man. And I was like, where's Ben Reilly? And he was nowhere to be found.
when you're done going through your experience, I will explain why it is this. I mean, you and I have had this conversation.
We've talked about why it is, but you know, maybe not
I'll get it on the record for those who don't know. About why it is done this way.
Okay, so the last bit, and I thought this was like actually interesting, and I'll talk about it more. But basically, like the final little like part 3 is Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and Mary Jane were supposed to have like a date night. They were gonna watch a movie, and Peter sees that on the news. There's like some I don't know. His name's like Boomerang. He's some like arbitrary Boomerang. Okay,
he's
super camp.
If you read the Superior Foes of Spider-Man, which is a very funny book, Boomerang is one of the guys that's like in that group.
Okay, cool. Well, so Boomerang is robbing a bank. Robbery number 5, I think. Yeah. So many robberies.
This should be a drinking game for this. How many robberies can you fit into 4 issues?
It would probably be Blackout, honestly.
Yeah, holy shit.
So he goes instant Spidey mode. He runs to this bank. Mary Jane comes in with popcorn and is like, oh my god, this bitch ditched me again. And they're married at this point in this story. So I guess so to my understanding, when I realized that, I was like, okay, so I guess all of this is canonical in some way. So she's like really mad. She's like, he always forgets about me. Like he's not paying attention to me. I feel really neglected and all this crap. You know, when is he going to stop playing like superhero and like have an actual like life? And so she sits down and she starts reading like this Life magazine article, and it's about the wives of police officers and kind of the burdens that they bury, but also why they feel like so rewarded. to be married to police officers, and it's like, so it's the parallels of their relationships. And after reading it, and like the news is still going on and it's broadcasting Spider-Man fighting Boomerang, like you can see like she still really cares about him and like wants him to like make it through like the whole fight and everything. And so he comes home, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I love you so much." And like it was a cute little like thing.
I mean, that
I
sounds cute.
I liked it. I thought it was really interesting. I feel like that's what I feel like that could be elongated. Like you could make that more than just a third of a comic issue. Because that's such like a bigger topic.
Well,
And
I
like a
will say,
story arc.
having read a lot of Spider-Man around that time, that was something that they just kept going back to for Mary Jane's character of being
Yeah.
like, and it I to me is the most boring version of Mary Jane, because
And
I mean,
it's like,
I don't know how much you know about when they first get together. She let him know that she always knew Peter was Spider-Man. So going into the relationship, I can see her being a little bit unsure of how things are being handled between the two of them. But to have it a thing where she is constantly being like, "Oh, he's going out and endangering himself. What have I done? This time." It becomes a thing where it's like, okay, but you signed up for this and you've had this this thought process multiple
yeah.
times over.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that was my first time like reading that. So I was like, oh, this is like a cool point. Like maybe they could have like have a book that kind of focuses on like the dynamics of their relationship, maybe not just specifically like this note, but like
Right.
other things. But they clearly don't want to do that. Because they wouldn't have made it just one third. And it's the smallest third
Well,
of
and
this whole thing.
Marvel very there were a lot of people who hated Mary Jane as maybe not as
Yeah.
like a character, but as the one that Peter is married to, the fact that he's married at all. I mean, look,
Yeah.
I later on, they completely dissolved this marriage, like not during the Clone Saga, way later, and
Yeah.
it's entirely done just to be like, look, we have to get him back to being a bachelor and get him away from being what they viewed as boring and unrelatable as like a loving husband. Like
Yeah.
it's fucking insane.
It's very odd. But yeah, it was a cute way to end it. Um this is the only time from my reading that like Peter Parker was involved. Like where you see him. You only saw him for like the 2 seconds in the Ben Reilly most face
Yeah.
stuff, and then just these like two where he fights Cardiac and Boomerang.
I mean, that
So
kind of makes
my
sense. The
yeah,
idea
so
was to separate them.
yeah. So my thoughts are like, okay, well if Peter Parker is definitely still around, there just must be like an overwhelming amount of crime
Yeah.
that that just like, but somehow like, and the whole time I'm just like, well, it's weird like that um Venom would be floating around, but you wouldn't see Spider-Man. Like you wouldn't see the Spider-Man. I thought that was very weird. And we're gonna get to that in just a
Okay.
second.
All right.
Because here is the thing. Oh, before we move to the next issue though, I will do my pros and cons real quick.
Yeah.
I liked the Ben Reilly section. I liked the inclusion of like the little second rate themes. I thought that was a lot of fun. It made it more interesting like to read. The things I didn't like, I did not like the double feature, dare I say the triple feature, because I didn't realize it was a triple when I wrote this con. Like I couldn't tell if Marvel Unlimited was glitching or or if it was just really shitty storytelling. And it really frustrated me. Because I didn't know what was going on. it context wise of that kind of the Marvel or the Spider-Man Unlimited thing. So that was a pain in the butt. Did you have something to say about the Marvel Unlimited before I moved on?
Oh, well, so around this time, Marvel introduced X-Men Unlimited and Spider-Man Unlimited. And the idea was that these were going to be places that had higher quality paper. It had a double the page count. It was supposed to be where you would tell a story that didn't quite fit into what you were telling in other places. And it made more sense the way the X-Men did it, so that it was technically within continuity, but it doesn't necessarily have to be read right there. Like, it's
it's
not
a
like
one shot.
Right. And they usually did them as longer stories. One of my favorites being, I think it was the first one in the X-Men, where the X-Jet gets shot down over the Arctic or the Antarctic or somewhere snowy. And it's just a tale of how do these people survive in an inhospitable area. And that was super interesting and fun. And I loved it. Spider-Man took it in a very different route in that the very first issue of Spider-Man Unlimited was part 1 to the Maximum Carnage story arc. So you had to pick it up to follow what was going on in the 4 other books that were coming out that month. And it's kind of weird because these were released on a quarterly basis. So it was once every 3 months. That's why they could do it as a little bit more expensive, and some of these, and then the other thing is they often would break it into these shorter stories. So you'd have one that was like maybe the size of a regular book, and one that was like maybe not enough to fill a full book, and then one that's just a handful of pages. And I guess that makes sense too, but like I have a bunch of these, and really the main features were the only ones that I thought were any good. The backup stories were just whatever.
It was all just very like, it honestly, having those like 2 okay ones right at the tail end of what I thought was just going to be what I was supposed to, go through. I feel like it kind of just like, it kind of stomped on like my experience with like, that first bit. So it was just like, oh, like, why did you do that? It was very frustrating.
If you pulled them out, do you think that you would have enjoyed Ben's story more?
I think so. I think I would have, because I wouldn't have that experience of being like, I would have known just like, okay, it's done. The end. Good. Cool. And that would have been fine. So that was, it was just kind of like, it throws you off. It was very weird.
Yeah.
But now we're going to move on. And I promise everybody that there are no more double, triple, quadruple features. It's just the main plot now. Am I going to say the main plot doesn't get is simple? No, it's not. So we're going to dive into it now. The next issue that I read was Spider-Man number 52. It's like Spider-Man Volume 1. It was like public, like the whole thing started in like 1990. Like, this is the issue. If you try and type Spider-Man 52 or Spider-Man 53, it will try to tell you that you want to read the Amazing Spider-Man from the 60s. That's not what I wanted to read. I wanted to read the one from the 90s. Google warned me, and I didn't listen. So the main
Are you
title
saying this is not a good story?
It's a fine story. It's okay. All of them are okay. Is the Amazing Spider-Man one amazing? I will never know. So that's fine by me. This one is called like Deadline. That's kind of like the subtitle of it. So it's going to start off at the Daily Bugle. You've got this working writer. His name's Ken Ellis. And he just had like a really successful like front page story about Venom. And he was getting his tips from Eddie Brock. He does not know that Eddie Brock is Venom. So, Ellis just gets another tip about where Venom might be next. And so he like runs off to chase the story, and that's when he runs into Spider-Ben, who is also looking for Venom. He was like in the last like issue, he had mentioned Venom, but you don't really know why he is really looking for him. It's not really properly explained. So I guess we're just assuming it's because of memories.
Well, so Venom would have been a character introduced after Ben was split from Peter. So
Okay.
I think it would more have to do with just understanding the violent nature that Venom was sort of known for.
Right.
At least that, like maybe just kind of going like, hey, he's a bad guy. Bad guys in the city, got to go get the bad guy.
And it's kind of like, oh, he's really bad. I'm surprised he hasn't been taken care of yet. So that's, I guess, kind of the main reason. So yeah, Spider-Ben also looking for Venom. Runs into Ellis. Ken Ellison is like, do you know where I can find him? And Ken shares the tip with him, and is hoping like, oh, maybe I'll get like a double exclusive like story out of this. I can get 2 interviews instead of just 1. That's like, because all he wants is just like this really big story. So that's what we get from like the first little bit. And Venom is at Roosevelt Island tram terminal, where
very specific.
Yeah, I felt like it was relevant, and so I was just like, maybe it is. It's actually is not. It's just a tram terminal, and the police are there. They're trying to shoot Venom down from like a building, and Venom is very upset because nobody sees him as a hero who's like with a redemption arc. They just see him as a person who's just killing a bunch of small scale criminals, which is true. He's on the rooftop with a pile of them, and it's very jarring.
Just a pile of dead people.
It's a pile of dead people. And they're like, and he's like, "Man, why won't anyone love me?" It's really weird.
One thing I think that Marvel has consistently gotten a little, I don't want to say wrong, but like it's never quite a focus, is Venom when in the 90s was fucking goofy.
Oh my god, he is, and it's really great. I love it. There were like some screenshots I took, and I think I sent like a Snapchat to Max, and I was just like, there's a really great line that it's during one of the fight scenes, and like Venom is like falling at some point, and Spider-Ben like catches him. They're gonna fight. We'll talk about it in a minute, really. But Venom's just like, oh, thanks for your help, friend. Let me return the favor. And then you turn the page and it's like, by breaking your spine. And it's like, oh my God.
So we're going to have, for these episodes, we'll have like a visual companion that goes up on the website.
Yeah.
For like, that way, like, when you're discussing cardiac and things like that, you can go and get a good visual of like how they're presented in the book.
I'm really debating on doing a side-by-side. For him and the Scooby-Doo guy. So yeah, I personally took screenshots of like pages that I thought were just like visually very like striking and very cool. Because there were a couple of them. That's usually like a lot of my pros for a lot of these issues. But like going onward. But I will continue. So he's got a pile of small dead bodies. And he's really trying to redeem himself because he's mad about creating carnage. And Venom's just starting to question his strategy, if it's even working, or like, because honestly, by doing a lot of this, he's hurting a lot of innocent people. Like at this tram scene, like he's basically almost torn down a whole like, sky tram, and people are in it. And he's just like, oh, maybe I'm hurting innocent people while trying to murder small crime. So, on the way to fight Venom now, we have Spider-Ben. He's questioning himself, and he's starting to feel doubts about his ability to fight Venom, because he does know that like actual Spider-Man has, fought him before, and he doesn't feel like he's like strong enough, all of this stuff. But before this like all happens, you see that there's kind of just like this little person like hiding in the background, like on some of these
just skylines. A little person?
No, just like you see like a hint of a person. And you're like, I don't know what that is. So now Venom, Spider-Ben, they're going to start fighting, essentially. And then out of nowhere, our person that's hiding, it's a lady Venom that comes out of hiding and is begging Venom to like stop what he's doing and to come with her because they need to talk. And then Venom sees that there's another kind of symbiote thing, and he's like, what the heck is this? What are you? Like, I made you too? Like, this is bullshit.
Wait, this is, she's yellow?
So I had to look it up. I was just like, okay. What is this lady symbiote? Apparently, she is 1 in 5 of a second generation, meaning she was made by Venom. Thinking. Her name is Scream. She is unnamed throughout the whole, like, they do not address her as Scream throughout this entire book.
If I'm thinking correctly, they don't really give her a name in universe until way later. Like, she has just like regular human name.
Yeah.
And my introduction to this character, so I know exactly who it is now.
Okay, cool.
If you go in the Islands of Adventure in Florida, there's a Spider-Man ride. And for whatever reason, they decided to include Scream as one of the villains that Spider-Man has to fight during the ride. And I remember seeing her for the first time, falling in love with her design. I think it's a cool ass design.
It is really cool. It's like this like bright yellow and like orangey, like red. She got this crazy hair, and she's like, just got the like ghost face. Yeah. And it's really cool.
I absolutely fell in love with her. I cannot tell you anything really that is like worthwhile about her.
Well, so I'll tell you right now, she is semi-conscious. Like, her human self is semi-conscious. And that's why she wants to talk to Venom. She thinks that like he can help her get control of
okay, that makes sense.
She is.
Because like Eddie and the Venom symbiote kind of, there's at least something there.
Yeah. Now, she has not told him all that. She's just like, hey, we need to talk. Venom gets really mad and instantly is like, hell to the no. And then he starts fighting her. Forget Spider-Ben. He's fighting this lady now. And Ken, our reporter man, he arrives at the scene. And he's reporting everything as these like symbiotes are fighting. And they're truly endangering everyone. Like, crap is falling everywhere. Again, there's like a tram car suspended in the air. It is probably going to fall soon. Ben Reilly, Spider-Ben, he's injured, but he's saving as many bystanders as he can. But he's still like thinking of himself as useless because he couldn't beat Venom. And now there's 2 Venoms, essentially. So he saves like all of these people and is like all mad at himself. And all these people are cheering for him, like, oh yeah, we love you. And they name him the Scarlet Spider. And he's not hearing any of it. At this point, while he was like saving bystanders, both Venoms have fallen into the river, and that's gonna like stall time for them or something.
Well, in classic comic book fashion, if you have to get rid of a villain, but you don't know, you want to
throw them in a body of water.
Throw them in a body of water or down a hole. Like, you never see a body, and they're gone. They'll be back sometime.
Exactly, and they tell you like, oh, they're gonna be back. I just needed some time. But yeah, he just keeps beating himself up, and he's like, oh, like, I'm not a real person. Like, I can't. I'm no good. And he plans to leave the city. And also Ken Ellis has like his article that gets published. So like There's a weird, like, someone gets success and someone wants to hit the high road. Also, okay, here were some questions I had with this one. I was questioning the lady symbiote for a while. I did answer that. We know who she is. She's Scream now. There was a point where in the beginning, Ken Ellis was like, I'm gonna like bury like Uric, who I am assuming is like some competitive writer of his. But he was like, he kept saying like, oh, I'm gonna get this scoop and like bury Uric and like all this, and it just kept coming up. And then it doesn't come up again.
Okay.
But while I was reading it, it felt like it was very prominent.
Do you know, okay, have you seen the Daredevil TV show?
No.
Or no? Oh, that would have been the easiest way to answer this. Ben Urich he's in the Daredevil show. So Ben Urich is just one of the top reporters from the Daily Bugle. And he often will team up with Peter. You know, Ben goes to write the story, Peter goes to take the photos.
Oh, okay. So Ken Ellis just wants to be Ben.
Yeah, Ben is if you're writing a story, and actually just recently when I was reading X-Men #1 just from the last year.
Right.
Ben Urich is the reporter that was reporting on the mutants now being in New York. So like it's just he's your Clark Kent kind of guy. You grab the guy or the Lois Lane, the person who is just like the top reporter that you always grab, you know.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. I'm glad that was like a thing that actually wasn't super complicated.
And he's like
good.
friends with Daredevil too. Like that comes up quite a bit.
Oh, that's fun. Good for Ben. Ken.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay. I didn't really have too many cons for this one. I think the one con is I feel like Ben Reilly has regressed. I feel like if we were going to make this whole like self-doubt kind of thing seems to kind of backtrack the progress he made in the issue before. Because in the issue before, it ends and he's like feeling very confident in himself. He's like, yep, I'm going to take on some responsibility. That's like how it reads. I feel like if we wanted this doubt kind of thing to make more sense, you know, I feel like the attitude for Ben would have been more like, I know it's important to save these people and like somebody has to do it, but these people are right. I feel very second rate. And that doesn't feel good. So I think like I wish like the attitude kind of canonically made sense a little bit. So that way it just didn't feel so choppy. But I really liked the issue. I thought like there were a lot of really cool like images, and it was like exciting to read because it was like, you know, you had a gritty reporter and then like, you know, you're getting Spider Ben's getting hyped up for like a scene and it's tense and like all of this is happening in a thunderstorm. So that was the other thing I liked about it.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it was just very visually like striking. There's a cool image that I screenshotted and it's Spider-Man and Venom fighting in the thunderstorm. And it was really cool and I thought that was fun. So I liked this issue. I just wish again that the attitude kind of flowed a little better. I'm not saying that it like I know realistically like some people have good days and some people have bad days, but I feel like when you're a fictional character, you know,
you follow a certain flow chart to the
end.
Yeah,
you want to make it a little smoother. And I can't that's the one thing. I got to make credits for next episodes cuz I want to remember who wrote what. Cuz part of me is thinking like I think a bunch of these writers wanted to
they wanted to do their take on
they wanted their take on building Spider-Ben's confidence. So I think that's part of the problem, but I will have to when we do the visuals and we write what issue it is, I'll add the credits to that for the visual stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Okay. So, and then also at the end of this, Spider-Man is hurt very badly. He gets like a huge wound to the gut. So poor Spider-Ben, his tummy hurts because it's open. So that is a thing that happens. And it's going to pick up pretty much right there. The next issue is Web of Spider-Man number 119. And this is called Echoes of Silence. So angsty. This is like probably the longest one because there's a lot happening here. It picks up right where like the last issue that I read ended, where it's like, everybody's celebrating the Scarlet Spider because that's what he's called now, apparently. And he's got, again, bad tum. So he's trying to get home to like fix this like open gash. On his way, like to call a doctor because he finally gets home and out of the costume and everything. He just like falls to the ground. This lady who lives in his apartment, I guess, her name's Gabrielle Greer. She finds him in the hall and then rushes him to the hospital.
She's got that Stan Lee, a very alliterative name.
Yes, definitely. It's very weird that it's like, sometimes it feels like only Ben Reilly doesn't have an alliterate name. But I also know that I've listed multiple people that don't have the like alliteration name. Yeah, so yeah. I'm not mad about it. But she rushes him to the hospital. You might think, oh, is this going to be a love interest? She doesn't get brought up again. Don't worry about it. So Ben Reilly is in the hospital. Venom is searching for the real Peter Parker now at all of his like typical spots, but he can't find him. He's trying to find Parker because he wants to know things about the Scarlet Spider. It was mentioned in the last issue before the fight happens. Venom's like, I made a deal with Spider-Man that we would leave each other alone. And you're not the real Spider-Man. So I'm going to eat you. And that's how the fight starts.
That's such a great way to just have an introduction to
and
someone.
It was a really cool intro. But here's what threw me off. The quote, I made a deal with Spider-Man. That threw me off because it comes back. There's going to be multiple times where Ben Reilly gets mad at Spider-Man because he made a deal with Venom. And you're like, what is this deal? In depth. Where did this deal come from? It was not in the issues that I read because I double checked. It was not in the issues you read. Apparently, it was in a totally different, like, comic book, just somewhere that is not a part of the Clone Saga, I believe.
Yes, I actually do know a little bit about this.
Okay, because I didn't. And I was equally confused and mad with Ben Reilly. Because I was like, why? What is the reason? Because it's a deal that would never work, from what I know of. Like, if you're going to let Venom do his thing, and, like, that defeats the purpose of Spider-Man. But if you want to tell me about the deal, that would be great.
This is an entirely sales motivated deal that happened within the story. So basically, Venom and Spider-Man, they have clashed multiple times, and they've had to deal with like Carnage and each other so many times that essentially Venom approaches Spider-Man and he's like, look, you and I, we can't be around each other. Like, I kind of hate you, you kind of hate me, and we keep getting into this thing. Yeah. If you promise to leave me alone, then I will leave you alone. And I will go to another city, and you have to let me just be. And for whatever reason, Spider-Man agreed. And it's one of those things that's like, if you were to look at it from Peter's standpoint, it only makes sense in terms of like protecting himself and like Mary Jane and like Aunt May. Yeah. But it totally goes against his like power and responsibility thing, because he's just saying, like, I'm taking care of myself. But in our universe, the real reason why they did that is because they gave Venom his own book, and Venom went to San Francisco, so that
God, of course he did.
You can't have Spider-Man just like letting Venom run around. And you can't, if Venom stayed in New York, then there would have to be a Spider-Man cameo in the book. And you can't really do that. They were trying to turn Venom into an anti-hero because he was such a big sales draw.
Yeah. But, maybe it didn't work because there's a pile of dead bodies on the roof. So.
Yeah, it's that's just such a silly thing for them
it's so
to do.
goofy.
And Venom, like the last time that, I don't know if the deal happened before Maximum Carnage or after Maximum. I feel like it had to have happened before, because if I remember correctly, Venom is in San Francisco at the beginning of Maximum Carnage, and then he comes to New York because Carnage is free.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that's like, okay, but you also keep bringing him back to New York.
Yeah.
And he keeps killing people.
It's weird. But yeah, so I would like everybody to know that this deal that gets made up that seems to be very important is not at all mentioned in the Clone Saga. Which, is one of the reasons why comic books are hard sometimes.
Well, and this is one of those times where they would have benefited from having the little bio at the beginning of the issue to fill you in on the pertinent details of like the things that they're going to reference.
And I don't think they did. If they did, I missed it. Oh darn. So yeah, so Venom is trying to find Peter Parker, cannot find him. And that is quite a time. Now, Ben is this might take me a minute to like get through this summary because there is like a web forming, no pun intended, of just the most insane, sometimes like character, like just ties. It's very weird. So right now, all you need to know is Venom is trying to find Peter to know about Spider-Ben, Scarlet Spider.
Right.
Now at the hospital, Ben Reilly is getting stitches. Okay. And he doesn't want an anesthetic. That was very like made clear. That felt somehow to be important. I think it's because he didn't want to be unconscious and then have somebody like walk in on him and be like, "That's Peter Parker. No, this is so and so." I think that's why.
That could be. The only other thing that I could think of is he was kind of a lab rat for when the Jackal created him. So like maybe there's something there,
sort of like trauma kind of thing. Yeah, I think there's like a possible couple other reasons. They weirdly don't get into that. They'll go miles and miles into Peter Parker's backstory, but they will not on Ben Reilly. So, while Ben is in the hospital, a nurse has tipped off the reporter, Ken Ellis, because he was looking for a man with the exact injury that Ben has, because he's trying to find the Scarlet Spider. Because
so he's got feelers out to like every hospital in New York.
Yes,
looking for someone with a very specific injury.
Yes, because he wants his interview. So
Gotcha.
that's now 2 people looking for the Scarlet Spider. Okay. Now, on top of the hospital, or just around the city, she makes it to the top of the hospital, we have Scream, which is what we're going to call her now, even though she doesn't get a name in this whole thing. She's looking for the Scarlet Spider so she can find Venom. And that's like, again, as the last ditch hope to get some control over the symbiote situation. So that is 3 people looking for Spider-Ben. One of them to find another person. 2 of them to find him specifically. What a time. Thank God I took notes. While all of this searching is happening, some mob in Midtown, it's not said exactly who, or maybe like if you're a deep lore Spider-Man fan, you would know. But there's some mob in Midtown and they're discussing the encroachment of quote unquote Papa Granite's organization on their territory. I don't know who
Papa Granite.
Papa Granite. Big rock man. I don't know. And they want, so this gang once an assassin whose name is Kane. He's a really Kane.
Okay. I'm aware of Kane.
Yeah, I was not. Kane has a really cool entrance though. It's very honestly his intro to in this issue is very Indiana Jones, so I think you'd like it. It's very cool. The gang wants Kane to take a hit on Granite, who is apparently literally like right like on the floor below them. I guess that's like there's a restaurant on the floor that is below them.
Okay.
Because all mob people own a restaurant for some reason in comics. And they're
I think
like
they've all seen the same gangster movies.
They've all seen Goodfellas.
Yeah.
That's it. Kane misses the opportunity. He stays in a chair reading a newspaper this whole time. You don't see his face. And the mob is mad. And they try to shoot him immediately, like instant kill Kane. That does not work. Kane kicks their asses. And then he's like, I got bigger fish to fry. And he throws the paper down, and it's Ken Ellis's article about a second Spider-Man. So now this is 4 people looking for Spider-Ben.
Ben is super popular.
Ben's popping right now. Good for you, Ben. Also sucks to be you, Ben. Now we're going to go back to the hospital. Ben Reilly escapes from a ceiling vent because he hears the reporters coming and he doesn't want his identity blown. So he gets away from Ken, makes it onto the roof of the hospital, but Scream's there. And Scream is trying to get answers from him because I guess while he was somehow traveling through the air vent, he managed to get a costume on. So he is Scarlet Spider now.
Feels like it would be hard to change in an air vent.
It would be. I mean, like, it's hard enough to, like, change in a car.
Yeah.
So I don't know how he's doing all of this. It must be a big air vent. Or, like, I genuinely have no idea. Because as far as we know, he doesn't have the weird Judas Traveler, like, arbitrary powers of just, like, he can't quick change like that. I don't think. I could be wrong, though. Who knows? Scarlet Spider, our little Spider Ben, doesn't want to hear her right now. He's just trying to get out. So he leaves. He hops off the building. And she starts having a full-on meltdown and throwing bricks off the roof. She's just like, I just want someone to help me. And she's going crazy. And now these bricks are falling off the roof and they're going to be hitting pedestrians. And so Scarlet Spider now sees that there's bricks falling off the building. And he's like, oh no, like, I gotta help these people from the bricks. So he's like starting to understand now that he needs to deal with the actual villains instead of just doing damage control for the villains, because he's been doing that a lot now. It's been like, first it was last issue, now it's this one. Venom actually comes to Scream during her hissy fit, and he's gonna destroy her. He's literally like, I'm going to rip you apart, pretty much.
Holy shit.
And he begins violently separating the symbiote from the woman, which would kill her with the way he's doing it. So, because I guess, again, Ben Reilly's apartment is like anywhere convenient, he's now changed into his full Spider-Ben costume, and he's now gonna deal with the villains head on.
I feel like the Spider-Men have this weird teleportation ability that's never quite addressed, because even in the last story arc, they somehow went from the middle of New York to fucking Westchester with no explanation of how they got there.
I think in terms of the costuming, it's got to be like Mary Poppins pockets.
Yeah.
I think because none of them had bags. So he's ready to, like, he's going to fight Venom. There we go. Oh, also that Gabrielle lady in the very beginning did check on him at some point to see if he was okay. But then again, it was so irrelevant. It didn't matter. She's not going to come back from what I've read.
We're getting little breadcrumbs. I feel like that's going to be something at least, because I mean, maybe not, because there's a lot.
Who knows?
this particular era of Spider-Man, if there's anything I know for a fact, it's that there's a lot of mystery people that show up. And
Yes.
most of the time there was no real plan in place.
Yes. Okay. But that was the end of that issue. It's, Spider-Ben, Scarlet Spider, has accepted he's going to fight Venom and deal with a problem head on.
So we have
So I'm going to give you a quick
Scream. Okay.
So Venom and Scream, they're fighting each other because Venom wants to just destroy a symbiote because he feels guilty about it and is mad at everybody. Scream, Lady Symbiote, who's getting ripped apart right now, just wants to have some control in her life and is just trying to get questions answered. So those two are fighting.
Gotcha.
Spider-Ben, or Scarlet Spider, is now going to hop in and he's going to challenge one of them. That's what we've ended with. We also have Kane, who has badass walked off and is like, I don't like this second Spider-Man. That's who we have right now. Okay. Cool. The thing I do
like we were like 3/4 of the way through the story, and they're like, oh yeah, there's this other guy.
Yes. Oh, just you wait. Okay. A thing I did not like. Okay, I thought individual scenes were really cool and really fun. I did not love them all stitched together the way they were. Pretty much the sequence I gave you is how it was delivered, and it just makes it feel a little overwhelming. And I guess maybe it's supposed to feel overwhelming because, I mean, like, if you were Ben Reilly and you had all these people searching after you for various reasons, it would be overwhelming. It was starting to feel just a bit like a character pileup that maybe needed just to be cleaned up a little bit. But after I tell you what happens in this final issue, I feel better about this one that we just discussed.
Great.
So this is the finale. We've made it, guys. Thanks for being so patient. The final issue is Spider-Man Volume 1, number 53. And it instantly is like, we are in the fight with Scarlet Spider versus Venom. And Scarlet Spider is just getting choked out right now by Venom. And that's not fun. But while he's currently choking and possibly about to like pass out, we don't know, Scarlet Spider is kind of thinking about like this deal that Spider-Man has made with Venom and is really mad. He's like, you know what? The real Spider-Man shouldn't have done that. And like, because if you're a true Spider-Man, why would you? That makes no sense. Like
That's
how we discussed. It makes no sense. And he gains confidence and breaks free from like the chokehold, basically. Because he's like, I'm gonna be better than this Spider-Man. I'm gonna finish what he started, essentially. Now what we're gonna do to make this the easiest way to explain is, so we are gonna go back and forth from various places to this specific fight. Cool. So everyone knows that all of this is technically happening at the same time, just we might be hopping in Salt Lake City for a hot second, and then we're going to go back to Venom punching people.
Okay, so we have a new location being introduced in the final chapter of this story.
Oh yeah. Okay. So we're going to do that right now. Okay, so we go to Ken Ellis. We're staying in New York right now. He's working late trying to get like his story all written up with the Venoms and the Scarlet Spiders and all that. J. Jonah Jameson warns him like, hey, don't let the story consume you.
That's interesting for J. Jonah Jameson to say that.
Well, he's like, take it from me. I learned.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. All right.
It's one of those.
Okay, Jonah.
He's learned some things. Yeah. It kind of makes you feel like Ken is going to be taking a turn for the worse. Because he's honestly like one of the most reoccurring like side characters. So I think he's going to be coming back, and maybe he'll be a baddie. We don't know. we're going to go back to the fight. Scarlet Spider thinks he has found a way to defeat Venom, but his little tummy injury never got better because he left the hospital early. So that's
it's been 5 minutes. So
yeah, so that's causing some stress because he's very injured. But he thinks he might have found a way to defeat Venom. Okay, now we're gonna go to a different spot. We're leaving the fight. So we have Grim Hunter, who is the son of Craven the Hunter.
Okay, yeah. I know the Grim Hunter.
Cool.
There are a lot of children of Craven the Hunter for some reason.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he's lamenting at his papa's grave, and he's like, I'm out of prison now. I'm gonna give Spider-Man a good beating now. Back to the fight. That was it. It was one
We
page.
also introduce another villain. I guess that works for setting up new storylines, but it seems like it's getting a little off the rails in terms of what's happening.
Just you wait, my dude. Just you wait. We're back at the fight. Scarlet Spider. This is gonna be so hard. Scarlet Spider has trapped Venom inside of a web cocoon because he's trying to save himself some time and regain a little bit of strength because his tum-tum hurts.
Right.
Yeah. Now we're gonna leave. We're gonna go to Salt Lake City.
Okay.
We have Detective Raven. Detective Raven, that is the bird, not Craven the Hunter. We have Detective Bird. Okay. He's getting a fax. Vintage. We love that. This fax has to do with some deaths that are happening in New York City. The victims resemble the pattern of a killer he's been chasing for years. Yeah, that's what we got.
I am vaguely aware of Detective Raven, so I do have some understanding of where this part's going to go.
Okay.
So this is interesting.
I have no idea who Detective Raven is. Is he a part of a different superhero comic?
No, this is if
he is a part of Spider-Man comics.
This is my guess, his first appearance.
Okay. So maybe we'll learn more about him.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Meanwhile,
again, I have a lot of the Clone Saga.
Yeah,
that
surprisingly.
I have read. It's just because it happens over the course of such a long period of time. I've not really read it all together, so I just have various little bits of information that I can pull from.
Yeah, it's a time. So now we're gonna leave Detective alone. We're gonna go to Mr. Thorpe.
Mr. Thorpe.
Mr. Thorpe. Yeah. He's just killed his brother, essentially. He is also a part of a big crime gang kind of thing.
Okay.
A big mob. He just killed his brother, who essentially was the leader of the mob, and is promoted to crime boss, again, of some organization. They don't tell you what. But he also does not like Spider-Man. Okay, cool.
Okay.
We're going back to the Scarlet Spider and the Venom fight. They're still
this
fighting.
Is a chaotic fucking issue.
They're still fighting. It's happening. They are still fighting, and Venom has broken out of his cocoon like a weird slimy butterfly. And basically what happens is the Scarlet Spider shoots a web shooter, like a specific one or something, inside of Venom's mouth. And that kind of, because the web explodes, it causes it to separate.
It's impact webbing.
Yeah. It's gonna separate Eddie from Venom. This made me question, when does Venom's mouth end and Eddie's begin?
I don't think we'll ever get a real understanding of how that works.
I don't think we will either.
It's kind of confusing because if I'm thinking about it correctly, his impact webbing is generally like a little like a ball, and then it
so
like
it's
it
a
expands
little
outwards.
so it's a little ball, and
Yeah.
then it goes out.
So,
Just with that sound too, the
but if it's
also.
in his mouth, that's really only one part of his body that's getting separated.
Well, so they start with the mouth, okay, and then they're trying to expose Eddie's face
Yeah.
so he can punch it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
This makes
So
sense then.
so
All right, I'm understanding.
so he's trying to, because that's, like the human part is the vulnerable part of Venom. So
Right.
he's repeatedly punching Eddie's face, trying to shoot more webs to like separate them. It's cool. I won't lie, I was confused by the logistics, but I tried not to think about it too much so I could enjoy myself.
It's the rule of cool. If it's cool, then it works.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as this is happening, Kane is on like a rooftop, angstily looking at them, and basically is like, you know, Spider-Man like made it again, but I'm gonna be the one to kill him. And then walks away. As some agency, I don't know what the agency is. I wish I knew. I feel like it should be relevant, but maybe it's not. But there is some agency containing Eddie Brock and the symbiote Venom separately and taking them. Hopefully that they don't get attached again. So, and then that's it. That's where it ends. I had multiple questions at the end of this, such as what group is containing Eddie Brock and Venom. Had multiple questions about, like, again, what is this deal with Venom and Spider-Man? But we've answered that now, which is great.
Yeah, we have that down.
Also, what happened to Scream? They didn't finish that because she didn't die. Scarlet Spider comes in between that.
Oh, that's a good point. My guess is,
and she came into multiple issues, and then
they were probably setting her up for a spinoff or something, because that tends to be the way they do things like this. And she came out of a story where I think she was one of the only symbiote characters to survive.
Yeah.
So I think they were really trying to build her up as like the next Venom, the next Carnage, maybe not as a villain, but as a character that you could buy a franchise out of.
Yeah. Man, I wish I knew we knew what had happened though, in terms of like this reality. She was cool. And like it seemed like she had a really interesting character plot line, wanting to like take control for herself. And
she
women
does
wanting to take control of themselves is very cool. So
she does stick around, because there are comics that are coming out like nowish that have featured her.
Yeah. But I guess just in terms of like this story, where did she go? Because they really just like forgot about her. I hope she comes back in the Clone Saga, because I would like to read more about her while we're doing this. But she truly just got dropped off. It was weird. Those were like a lot of my questions. Yeah.
So just from what I have been able to glean, the organization that takes Venom away is the Guardsmen, which are essentially, have you seen like Age of Ultron, the Avengers movie?
I've seen parts of it.
All right, so essentially in that, Tony comes up with a series of like robots to help him with his what is essentially policing. And in the Marvel universe at this time, rather than do that, he basically came up with a series of armor that was not quite Iron Man-esque, but would still help out, and that was the Guardsmen. And they set up a little organization to help out with like they would go to the Vault, which is maximum security prison. They would they were in charge of like taking in supervillains. And I don't know, they have some pretty cool armor, I think. Nothing crazy, but just an interesting looking design. And it's cool to have like I was a big fan of Damage Control. They were like a company that would come in after superhero fights. I like that idea. Like, how do you react to having a world full of these superhumans? What is it that you do? And having an elite armored task force come in to clean up, and then also like a separate like group of people that would clean up specifically after superhero fights. That's pretty interesting and fun.
Yeah, so. I think that's fun. I think that's why I like The Boys a lot, because it kind of challenges like, well, what happens after the fight? Like, there's like cynicism to it. I'm a fan.
Well, and that's if you the storyline itself is not great, but the lead up to Civil War was pretty interesting, because especially within the Spider-Man comics, because I was reading them at this time. Spider-Man goes with Tony to Congress, and one of the conversations that's had is, who's responsible for cleaning up after these superheroes come in and make a fucking mess of everything?
Yeah.
Who's paying for this? Why is this being taken care of by people who aren't you? You're causing all of this damage. And I was like, yeah, that's interesting. And then the storyline starts, and it doesn't go in that direction whatsoever. But that was still an interesting question to be asked at the beginning of the Civil War comic.
Oh, definitely. I think so. That's cool though. Okay. So we know who took them away. That's good then. So I did not love that there were
scattershot issue.
There's so many characters, so many that were just added to this, like right at the very end. And we knew it was the end of this little like segment. So, it should feel somewhat like a finale, but it does not. It just feels weird. I do like, however, that like Ben Reilly finally gets some confidence. I think the last 3 issues, like the Spider-Man 52, the 119, 119 and the 53, those 3 together are good. I like them together.
Okay.
I thought that in and of itself was like a good story, because you have the right amount of like self-doubt and then redemption to like get a hero who can stand up on their feet. That was great. So I liked the ending of this. It was good. It's so many characters. That's what I don't like. I feel like if you're gonna be making this long event thing, you would stagger your villains. Like, Kane makes the most sense to be back in this issue, because you would allude to him as being like the next big villain, because you had a really cool intro to him like an issue or 2 ago, and now he's back and he's watching the fight. He's in the city, he's really close, and he like wants to get this Spider-Ben. The Grim Hunter, the like weird mob organization, and like the detective, all like the 3 of them all together, it's just very overwhelming. It would like, again, you would assume that those would solo be added to like their own like season or their own little book. You stagger it. Once you start to finish one villain, maybe 2, like then you go to the other. Having like 3 or 4 is just like a lot.
I will say one of my favorite types of comic book storytelling, and it's not quite done that much anymore, at least with the big 2, but surprisingly done extremely well over in Sonic the Hedgehog, is where you have your main story, and then as you're like starting to wrap that up, you have a different, like a B plot or a C plot even going just in the background, and it's just a couple of pages at and it slowly builds until it's the next story arc, and then you do that over and over again, and it just feels like you're flowing into the next story.
It just feels more graceful, but with this it just feels like you're the ball and racket.
Yeah, that I mean, just you describing this, where it's like, oh, you have a page of Spider-Man or I guess Scarlet Spider and Venom fighting, and then now you got to deal with Detective Raven. And look, I know where some of this is going, and that's
And I
interesting.
don't.
But
Because
it's
again,
like,
I've never read any of this.
If you've never read it, what all you're getting is mystery character number 1, mystery character number 2, mystery character number 3. What's gonna happen next? And there's
there
a
was a
certain point where
moment
that doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah, and there was a moment when it was just Grim Hunter and Detective Raven. There was a moment where I was like, oh, maybe Grim Hunter is the one that Detective Raven is looking for. But I had to I looked back and what they were both saying and where the locations of where things were didn't match up for Grim to be Raven's killer he's looking for. It didn't add up. So it seems pretty clear that those are two separate plots. And then you add the Kane reminder and this other crime boss. It's
I keep forgetting that there's just this random crime boss.
Yeah, he's super forgettable. And I tried to look back at the past issue where Kane's introduced to see if Thorpe is mentioned, because maybe they are connected, but they don't say a name of who it is. And all your classic mob people all kind of look the same. But it's so you can't prove that they're part of the same plot line or not. And they didn't mention Kane in the Thorpe scene. So you're just is just some other guy who wants to kill Spider-Man. So there's 4 people at the end of this that want to kill Spider-Man, who they think Scarlet Spider is just a reincarnation kind of deal, a second try of, essentially.
Yeah.
So Ben Reilly has a lot coming to him. I feel bad for him. But yeah, that's all I read. It was a time.
It seems like it could have been a very short story. Instead of over 5 issues, you could have told it in
I think you could have told it in 3.
3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you started with 52 deadline and you end it. Yeah, if you do Spider-Man Volume 1, number 52, and then you do the 119, and then you go to 53, I think that is one solid, complete story, even though you get the weird jumbly characters at the end. And then if you just sprinkled
excise those out.
Yeah, you could. That would be great. And then if you could just kind of sprinkle in a little bit of maybe the scene at the diner or the scene at the museum in one of those, I think it would be fine.
This is reminding me a lot of either Dragon Ball Z Abridged or Dragon Ball Z Kai, where you can have just go in and just cut out all the fat and make it, what is the fucking story? Tell me that story.
Yeah.
That's that. I feel like that this would benefit greatly from something like that.
Yeah.
Or even this Marvel's doing a thing now, which is great. I've only the ones that I've read are very different qualities, but the first one being X-Men Grand Design, the Grand Design series. Essentially, you take all of a character or franchise's their entire story and you tell it over the course of a couple of issues.
Yeah.
Where you really got to just nail down this thing happened, this thing happened, this thing happened. And I feel like that would be the best way to tell the Clone Saga here, because you have so many moving parts that don't quite fit together in their entirety.
Yeah. And I think kind of the whole overarching theme of this is just figuring out your own identity and trying to make yourself your own. Because he very clearly, like, throughout the whole time is having the whole, like, what are these memories to me? Like, I'm not a person. Oh, I am a person. Like, and at this point, at the end, he's just accepted, like, I need to deal with problems head on. That's where we end. So I guess overall, I think this was a pretty good, like, storyline. Yeah, the first two, again, they weren't my favorite. I liked the last three that I read. Just felt more like tied together. And fuck the anthology thing, 'cause that was really annoying. um, but yeah, no, I thought it was fine. I think out of the first two that we've like the two episodes we've done, I think I might have gotten the better end of the stick. So I'm grateful for that. Just in terms of like concise like storyline.
Legitimately, as we move forward, the next episode, I really like the story. We're gonna get into it.
Okay, cool.
Next time, and it is. I like it for basically doing kind of the negative stuff of this story arc. I think is done a little bit better in the
Okay,
one that I'm covering,
that's good.
because it's just we'll get into why next
Yeah.
episode, but it's just so weird that I was like, I'll be damned, I really enjoyed that.
Oh, good. I'm excited. I'm excited to like know more, like, and see what you read. I'm interested to see like what Peter Parker is doing, because I know New York is big, but New York is like not that big.
It's going to be a weird story.
Cool. Well, I'm excited for it.
I have some trivia for us to get into.
Let's kick it.
Surf the web, surf the web.
Shut up, Brock. We don't have time.
I'm going to be quoting from the Life of Reilly archives, which was written by Andrew Golitz. They did a 35-part series on Ben Reilly.
Cool.
And sort of how Ben Reilly became the character that he is. And throughout this, I found this, and I'm just going to be cutting out parts. There is an editor. They have Glenn Greenberg, who at this time I think was an assistant editor. They will eventually become an editor on Spider-Man, and a lot of this is just, I'm going to quote them specifically about this story arc.
Okay.
So Glenn says, I remember seeing the sketches of the Scarlet Spider, hearing the name and just shaking my head and rolling my eyes. I thought it was really cheesy, and that the fans would feel the same way. I remember several of the other non-Spider-Man editors greeted the Scarlet Spider with scorn as well. But Mark Bernardo explained to me that the costume was supposed to look cheesy, that it was something Ben Reilly pretty much threw together in a hurry out of necessity. Hearing that, I figured that if it was intentionally cheesy for story purposes, it might actually work. Although why Ben continued to run around in a cheesy thrown together makeshift outfit after he decided to become the Scarlet Spider on a regular basis remains a mystery to me. So I think that's pretty interesting, because the Scarlet Spider costume, I love. I think
like
it's really
it.
Cool.
Well, and I think it does currently make sense for him, because he is a wishy-washy character. Like, I mean, he had a bunch of confidence at the end of the second issue that I read, but then it immediately goes away for like 3 issues. So I think it does make sense for him to probably like want to have a thing where he constantly is like, oh, I should just throw it away. It's like a sweatshirt, like whatever. But then it's like, oh no, I got to save people. Where's my sweatshirt? Like, so
Yeah,
I think it makes sense.
I think that eventually Ben gets a very different costume, and I like that one a lot too, but this is the one I think of whenever I think of Ben Reilly. This is the one that I like.
I think it's cool. I like it.
It is so interesting. All right, so I'm going to move forward a little bit. There's another quote from Glenn. The story of Ben's victory over Venom was very important. It was specifically designed to show how cool a character Ben is, to get the readers to be impressed with him and really root for him. The point had to be made that he could go toe to toe with one of Peter's most dangerous enemies and not only hold his own, but also have a decisive victory. This was crucial, absolutely necessary to the development of his character, especially in light of the direction in which he was ultimately going to go. I thought it was a nice touch to have Ben harshly criticize Peter's pact with Venom. It showed that Ben was more like the Peter Parker we knew, loved, and remembered than Peter was being at that time. Which I think is, at that part, I think is really important. Because again, we've talked about how Peter in the last story arc is, he's running around like, I'm the Spider. I don't want to be Peter anymore. And it's just very out of character, not what people wanted.
Yeah.
But Glenn goes on to say, this was actually intended to be a foreshadowing of the direction in which things were going to go. I always hated the pact between Peter and Venom. I thought it was so out of character for Peter to make such a deal with the villain as obviously crazy and dangerous as Venom. And it was especially interesting to hear Ben voicing my own opinion. It was good to see this used as a way to show a major difference between Peter and Ben and to perhaps imply that all was not right with Peter, that maybe Ben was the preferable choice between the two. It was clever to use Peter's pact with Venom in this way. So, I mean, you can already kind of see there's like this groundwork of being like, things are not going right with Peter. We should have a backup.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we pretty much like covered that. I think we agree with this man's. I approve. Because right now Ben Reilly definitely does seem like a more favorable like neighborhood hero.
Yeah.
Because it's also like, again, they're giving him the kind of clear moral backbone of like, no, of course, like, why would anyone want to make a deal with this crazy alien thing? That seems like a terrible idea, given the track record. Also, look at the dead bodies on the roof. Clearly, no one should have made a deal with him. And then, but also, he kind of still has his own things to learn.
Yeah.
That are, I feel like, maybe different from Spider-Man. Because, and granted, I'll be honest, this is the first Spider-Man thing I've ever read. So I could be wrong when I say this. But I feel like it's a unique thing for this character to kind of be like, oh, I shouldn't be doing the damage control that the villains are producing. I should be dealing with the villains. I think that's kind of like a new thing because I feel like usually, like, when you get a superhero that's starting out, they do try and just like deal with the villain.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, oh, I don't feel ready for this now. I'm gonna stop the bricks from falling on people's heads instead. Which I thought was like unique. So that was like kind of cool to see.
That is kind of unique. I like that approach to have been almost come at it from the opposite angle that most people would.
He's dipping his toe in instead of like swan diving straight into the pool, and it's interesting.
All right, I have two more quotes of Glenn's, and I think that they're both pretty relevant to kind of what we've talked about.
Okay, cool.
So Glenn says, I also remember that there were big plans in store for Kane. The Spider-Man team was really excited about the prospects of this character. I didn't know who he really was at this point. Even Mark wouldn't tell me at first. I think he wanted me to read the stories as they came out so that they could see my natural, unprepared reaction when Kane's identity was finally revealed. Although, if memory serves, I finally dragged the secret out of old Bernardo one night after work, probably over drinks. So, there is a lot packed into what they are going to do with Kane.
Yes, and they do kind of. So what I know so far about Kane, which I realize I probably forgot to mention, it sounds like he had one kind of identity, and Spider-Man beat him, I guess, pretty badly, and now he has kind of this quote-unquote like new form. And when he sees Scarlet Spider battling Venom in that final scene, he's kind of monologuing, being like, "Oh, I see you've now taken a new form. Like, well, I'm gonna come out on top this time. I'm gonna be the one to kill you." I don't know what that first form would have looked like or anything, or what it was, but it was a very cool thing to it was a cool monologue.
I am curious to see how this plays out moving forward, because I can just tell you, as someone who has come into this well after the Clone Saga and knowing everything that happens, I hated Kane.
Oh, okay.
I fucking hated Kane. But that doesn't mean it's not good. It's just that, I'm coming at it from an entirely different perspective.
Right.
So it's interesting to see how this moves forward.
Mhm.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And going back to Glenn, he further goes on to say, there were a lot of shadowy mystery men coming into the fore in the Spider-Man books at this point. First was Ben, then Kane, then Jacob Raven, and of course, Traveler and his followers can be included too. It would grow to become sort of a monotonous after a while, but at that point, I liked the tantalizing clues about what happened during Ben's time in exile. It showed that the character had his own story and was really off doing stuff over the long years. Which, I mean, I kind of like, it's interesting to have stuff of importance happening to Ben before he's reintroduced into Peter's life. Like that I find interesting.
Okay, well wait. Here was a weird thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And I realized that we didn't talk about it before. So at the end of Deadlines, this was the one really weird thing. So after the whole like tram car incident, everyone starts calling him the Scarlet Spider, and he's like beating himself up in front of like a cheering crowd, and he's like, he has plans of leaving the city. There is a point that it says he came back to the city, but he also still has the same injury. So you're just like, wait, I thought, like, it seems very confusing because it's worded almost like he did leave and came back, but also like no time has passed. And now it's like, okay, well, were you saying like he's injured, he's going to his apartment, and then he's going to be leaving, and then caught up in like then got caught up in the rest of the story? Like, it was
That
very
might be
weird.
more of what was being planned.
Yeah.
Uh
It
it's
was just very weirdly. That was one weird blip in like the three issues that I did like. I was like, this part makes no sense, but I think I can go like just wash over it.
there someone did put together uh a rough framework for what happened to Ben after the original Clone Saga and between uh this Clone Saga.
Mhm.
It's just that how that eventually gets explored and how you get that information is not really, it's not given to us yet.
No.
So there is an idea,
Yeah.
but it's coming this is another thing where like we talked about I think a couple of episodes ago, you're coming into every issue almost like you're in chapter 2 because you don't have all of the information, and a lot of
Exactly.
the writers don't either. So especially
Yeah.
with these characters who all have some sort of a background and some sort of tie to Spider-Man or Ben, we don't know that. So we don't
No,
know
we
what the fuck.
don't.
They're just these random people that are showing up, and it's like, okay, well, it's like in the early, oh, actually around this time in the early 90s in the X-Men comics, you had Cable, and uh part of Cable's back, you didn't know Cable's backstory. So every other issue he ran into someone he had some mysterious past with. And a lot of the times it would be like a character we already knew, and they'd be like, "Oh, Cable running into you again." And it's like, just tell me what the fuck happened or show me
Yeah.
something,
Like, are
because I'm
you
tired of
distant
seeing this.
relatives? Like, what
Yeah.
is this?
I'm tired of seeing this tease coming, because at some point you're just like, all right, I don't care. There's like 20 people who are they're all lined up to tell their story, and yet you keep not letting them,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
weird.
Um But that was interesting. I like that Ben comes out of the gate and starts with Venom as his first major bad guy.
I
And
thought
it's
it was
also
pretty
interesting
cool.
to make Venom the bad guy when in Peter's part of the Spider books, that's kind of not that, and it's not been a thing.
Well, because they had the deal, I guess.
Well, and even before that, it was sort of like, oh, Carnage is in town now. Well, you can't really, like, Venom's not the big bad because Carnage is the big bad.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that. It's also weird that the first 2 story arcs we have Carnage and Venom, because I feel like, they're interesting, but come on.
Well, I think it's also because there are, like, I feel like there's some of the most popular villains. So
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, come read this. Everybody's
Look,
favorite is in this.
I just a few years ago I went back and I read Carnage's first story arc. Like his introduction, like as Carnage, and the team up between Spider-Man and Venom to take him down, and it's not good. Not like, it's an interesting idea for a character. The story itself is not good.
Yeah, and it's also just like I liked Venom in this one. Do I think Venom is like my all-time favorite Spider-Man villain? I don't know enough of them. But I would still probably say no. Just because it is like him fighting just a darker version of himself. And I usually don't get attracted to like that kind of villain. Except for Man-Bat. That's different. And and I'm just saying that now so no one can come at me and contradict me. Man-Bat is special and we all know that. But it's not, it's not like Venom shows any like really special like powers aside from the fact that he's just really strong and certain stuff just doesn't like bounces off of him. Like,
he's just big Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's just big Spider-Man that looks scarier. So yeah, he's just I get it. He's not the most like combatively interesting. But I think I liked how he talked. I think I just liked how chaotic he was just in the story that I read. Because it truly was like, I'm gonna be a hero now. Runs a car off a bridge. Like it's really funny seeing like a super villain's portrayal of like how to be a hero. It's just instantly get rid of the problem the quickest way you can. Throw it off a bridge. Like, kill it instantly.
I'm curious, and this could be a follow-up to the Clone Saga if we ever get around. I'm curious how you would react to Superior Spider-Man. Do you know
I don't know. No, I've never heard of that.
Superior Spider-Man is a story where Dr. Octopus, before he dies, transplants his brain patterns over Peter's. And so he becomes Spider-Man. And so it is a long story arc. I don't think it's quite as long as this one, but it's a long story arc where Peter is not Spider-Man. Dr. Octopus is Spider-Man. And so it's how would Dr. Octopus approach being a superhero?
Yeah.
It's really interesting and weird. I was not super into it for a like long story arc, but it is an interesting idea and an interesting like way to look at like, okay, so Peter approached it this way and Dr. Octopus approaches it this way. One is a little bit more humanitarian than the other.
Yeah. I just thought it was funny, especially like in the first issue where you have like, you see like the police calmly arresting these robbers and then instantly it goes to like the police are chasing down different robbers and then the car's just not there anymore. It's real. Like Venom is the peak of like throw anything in a body of water. It will be like it's not your problem anymore.
I highly recommend checking
I thought that
out.
was funny.
There's the PlayStation 1. There was a Spider-Man game that came out that I fucking loved as a kid, and Venom is a good chunk of that story that I highly recommend you checking out because he is. But I have to get Spider-Man's attention. How do I get his attention? I'm gonna hijack Times Square. I'm gonna take over the big fucking TV in Times Square, and I'm going to announce that I kidnapped his wife. And then I'm going to taunt him as he's trying to get his wife. And then it's just like every single thing he does is fucking ridiculous. And it's like, yeah, okay, I can see why you did that.
It's almost like your 11-year-old does something really stupid. And you're like, explain this to me. And they do. And you're like, okay.
The logic is there.
I'm like, I get
sense.
the thought process, but this is not how we do things, Timmy. And I think maybe that's why people like Venom so much. Oh no, am I becoming a Venom fan?
I think, look, if you
know what? That's okay. I can't be mad at that. I love Man Bat. So it's like, what's the difference, really? I'm taking back everything I said before.
There are two Venom fans. There's one that is just, they love the darkness. They're like,
they're just like, oh, he's so cool and gritty. Yeah. And then I'm just like, he goofy.
And those are the other Venom fans. And
yeah.
I think I'm somewhere in the middle in that I can appreciate the darkness. And I think like that's an interesting take on the character. However, the thing that was the most fun about him was how batshit insane he was.
He is truly goofy. He just has a scary jack-o'-lantern face, and that makes it even goofier. I love it. It's a good time. So yeah, this was a fine thing. If anyone wants to read The Exile Returns and just nothing else, you'll live. You'll be fine.
And so with that, you can find more information at comicallypedantic.com. We're actually going to be posting a lot of visual companions for what we're reading through, just so you have a good idea of what we're going through, the artwork, some of the cool stuff that we like, even just getting an idea of the characters. You can find that all at comicallypedantic.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram. I will say I don't really tweet that much or post that much on there, but I do have some stuff I'm going to be putting up. Mm-hmm. You can search at PedanticCast on both platforms. New episodes come out most Sundays on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and at comicallypedantic.com. If you have any comments or questions, you can send them in text or audio recording to comicallypedantic@gmail.com. Please indicate if you'd like your name or question read on the air. We will be back soon with another deep dive into the world of comics. This time, I will be running it. We will be going over Peter's adventures over in Back from the Edge. And until then, you can find more exciting adventures at your local comic shop.
Give me 1 second, because I feel like I typed this wrong. I did.